the craziness that's been happening in Chicago. We were just
Yes.
talking just before we started recording here. The purpose of the show is, again, this great centralization product to give power back to people. Information is
Yes.
power. Censorship is garbage. It's antithetical to wisdom. If you treat people like they're stupid, eventually you will make them so. And on the
Yes.
heels of that, you went through some recent censorship, which is absolute just trash. You had your press credentials pulled, basically for asking questions that people in power didn't want you to ask, which is why we have a press. It's the whole
Yes.
purpose of the Fourth Estate. So I wanted to jump into that. I know there's a couple other things happening. For anybody that's not been paying attention, Brandon Johnson was elected the mayor of Chicago. Many people
Yes.
would put him left of Lori Lightfoot. We've seen some interesting things happen with San Francisco and Philly and New York, to name a few. The founder of Cash App was just stabbed to death 2:30 in the morning Tuesday, in probably what is the wokest city in the nation right now. So
Yes.
we have a preview of where this is going to go if we continue down the road of insane policy. And I've been trying to educate people as far as like, hey, just be aware before you pull the trigger on voting for someone, really what they stand for. Don't listen to the social media vacuum. Really pay attention to opposition voices, because they'll tell you where the warts are for even the people you like. And you got to know that to be an informed voter. So anyway, thank you again for joining, man. This is so exciting to talk to you. You are known.
Warts and all.
Warts and all, warts and all, Invisalign,
Yeah.
rubber bands and all.
You know, I have to say, Reed, that I wasn't going to do your podcast until you stated that you were not going to shave until I came on your podcast.
It's been 3
and
years.
I said, you know what? For the purpose for Reed, for his hygiene, for whatever other consideration, I will agree to do the podcast.
Thank you very much. I got it out to a point now where I can twirl it. I can look like the evil villain.
That is awesome, dude. I want that someday. I will do that. In fact, I'm going to say this right now. I will the next time. Well, maybe not the next time I'm on with you, but you will see me with a handlebar mustache.
Oh my God!
I'm dead. Oh,
All right.
Wait a second. Where does the name "Before I'm Dead" come on?
After I'm dead.
After you're dead.
So After I'm Dead is so specifically, again, this is not about the impact it has to us directly. This is about the next generation and what's going to impact them. I have a nephew. I've got a lot of friends with very young children, 1, 2, 3 years old. The world that we're handing them is going to be shit. It's going to be wrought with special interest, nepotism, pseudo-nepotism, all the things that ultimately what this country was established on, which was meritocracy, is antithetical to. And so we can't have a place where, if you look at the Bidens, I mean, Hunter Biden is getting God only knows how much money just because he's Joe's son. And I get it. Like, you shouldn't be, nobody should prevent you from making money off of your family's name if that's the case. But when you start getting into some of the things that they're doing, it gets real shady really quick. And that we can't have a 2-tier system of justice, rules for thee, not for me. And we saw that declaratively over COVID. I mean, Lori Lightfoot was out getting her hair done and walking around without a mask on. And it's fine for her, but you shut up and you go to sit in your home and you don't leave your house for, 2 years until we tell you it's safe. So, and especially with all of the censorship over COVID and, getting into the 26.
And there's a huge difference between a traditional Chicago Democrat getting his kid a job at the Park District and I guess what we have now, getting your kid a job in a foreign country. Yeah. What the heck? Reed.
It's a little much.
That's outrageous. That is unfortunate. Let me just say that.
And especially when the skill set isn't there. And it was, there was all this money coming in from CCP-backed financial firms for, quote unquote seed money for what was started. We don't know. But there's, I know the Senate Finance or House Finance Committee is going through a lot of paper records right now, financial records, excuse me, and they're finding a lot of very interesting things, which is actually why I think the Trump indictment happened, which is, again,
can I go back to the name of your podcast for a second?
Yeah, After I'm Dead. Next Generation. Sorry, I get off on tangents. The focus is to make sure we don't give shit to the next generation and that they have a better world than we did. And I don't think we're doing a very good job at that.
That would be phenomenal. I'm all for that. I would love that. I would easily sign up for that. I love the name of your podcast, After I'm Dead, because Nietzsche, believe it or not, stated that all of his writings were for people after he would die, after he was dead. I don't know if you, I'm not doing that quote justice, obviously, but basically, he said there's no way, there are some people who have an impact on, during their lifetime, but he fully accepted the fact that he wasn't going to have any impact on anybody until after he was dead,
It's a real thing. We have such little time on the planet, and I think part of I think what's gotten lost in capitalism is this sense of like immortality, and we just have to gobble up as many resources as you can while you're on the planet, and it's at the expense of the world around us, which is a really big problem. And if you just play this game out, you get into a place where you've got all of the resources.
You get into a place where instead of people thinking, I want to plant as many trees as possible, you just have people who are thinking, how much fruit can I rip off of the existing tree?
Right. And it's a really so much to unpack philosophically on this, because I think, I think we have a people problem, and I'll expand on what I mean for that. It doesn't matter if it's like socialism, communism, capitalism. Those all go off the rails because of the people. Communism in Cuba probably could have worked great had it not been for the Castros. Socialism would probably work wonderfully if you didn't run out of other people's money and you didn't have government corruption at every step of the way. Capitalism would be great if it wasn't for the people in it in late stage capitalism that use their resources for abusive amounts of power and control. Like this is all those things. It's the same thing with guns. Like guns in the hands of a good person, there's no problem. In the hands of what we saw in Nashville, it's fucking horrible. Or here in Chicago, every weekend you get bad guys with guns, and they do terrible things. If you go back a
few centuries, you could say the exact same thing about Iraq.
Exactly.
Like an actual rock killed, killed Cain, or the exact same rock killed, Goliath. So it's not the rock, it's the person throwing the rock. Obviously,
it's the person It's the same thing with Democrats and Republicans. It's the same thing with, if you like the Christians that are, it's like Christians that'll blow up an abortion clinic. That's just that's an asshole. That's not the reflective of Christianity, in the same way that a kid straps on a bomb vest and blows himself up in a market bazaar because he believes in Islam.
Right.
That's not Islam. That's radical Wahhabism at best. So it's like we don't have a problem with any system or culture or people or tools or government. It's all bullshit. It's a distraction that keeps us at each other's throats.
Although I do have to say this, Reed, I have to tell you, I agree with everything that you just said philosophically, except when it comes to communism. Okay, this is my honest to God opinion, that no matter who tries communism or where they try it, it's a bad idea.
It's horrible.
And I'll tell you why. Because if for example, it had only been tried in, after the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, for example, then tens of millions of people die. Some people say, 10 million, 20 million, 40 million, but hey, what's a couple million people, give or take, right, Reed?
Yeah.
But at any rate, even if that was the only quote experiment in communism, then I could see where somebody might say, well, clearly it would, it just was not applied correctly. But then, you go to over to China, right, with the Mao Zedong, right? Remember that guy?
Mao. Oh yeah, it was bad guy. Bad guy.
German Mao. And the problem was, here you have a completely different.
Mao Zedong.
Yeah, am I freezing up on you, or what am I doing?
I am. Okay? Yeah, I'm freezing. Are you freezing, or am I freezing?
You're freezing. So I thought maybe because I thought maybe I'm doing the same thing. But just so you know, so maybe while you're straightening that out, I'll just make my point about communism in China with Mao. Again, tens of millions of people died. Completely different culture, completely different leaders, right? And so you would think that any normal person or professor would look at that and say, this is clearly a recipe for disaster. And I, as somebody who was born and raised in Chicago, am sincerely worried about why or how any voter in Chicago would think it was a good idea to vote for communism in Chicago. It didn't work in China with Mao Zedong. It didn't work with Lenin or Marx. Why would it work with Brandon Johnson?
So I would agree with that. Where I was going, where I was trying to get to was that I think inherently, to the point of communism, I think communism gives an unbelievable amount of power to a very small group of people, and it's primed for corruption.
Very hateful because on top of it.
Yeah, because again, like it's a thing
who
of
are motivated
people
by nothing but hate and greed and envy.
Right. And again, I go back to my thesis of this is that that's a people problem, not a systems problem. And I think some systems can help exploit the darkness of the human condition more so than others. And I think communism incentivizes it, which is probably why every time we've seen it in the past, including Stalin, 100 million people, Mao, 40, 60 million people, everywhere it's gone, Castro's.
It empowers the absolute worst people in the society.
100%.
And what really makes it even more difficult to understand is, or more reprehensible for anyone to actually support this communism idea, is the fact that basically what they're saying is, even if, they're saying that, yes, communism was horrible in after the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Yes, it was horrible after the, the Mao Revolution in China. But Brandon Johnson is such a much better human being that, surely he will do a better job at applying communism to Chicago than, let's say, Mao did in China, because Brandon Johnson is just so much superior to Mao. How do you know that Brandon Johnson is superior to Mao? How do you know that? Prove it to me.
I would not have an answer for you about that. I think where this goes off the rails for a lot, and I think this is why a lot of voters vote in a specific direction or a specific way. There's this thing, and we saw it a lot over COVID, especially with the vax mandates, where it's like, if you don't get vaccinated, you're a selfish person. It's the same similar argument with gun control. It's like, what do you need this 30-round magazine for? Only bad people have these things. Only active shooter. You're not a bad person, are you? Are you a bad person? Why do you need that? It's kind of the same thing. It's like, why? Like this is a thing that's good for all people. Why do you not care about all people? Are you not a good person? Like, communism's great. This is always how it's sold, because I think people by nature are very good people, but we've got a fractional portion of our culture and society and these individuals that just aren't. And I think they see, and I've said this in other interviews as well. So if anyone hears me repeat this, I'm sorry, but I think we apply ourself to a lens that we see the world through. And most people are good people. And so they don't understand the darkness of the human condition, because they themselves can never get there. That's why the Nazi death camps in World War II were thought to be a propaganda up until literally the Western Front had found them and gone into them. It was considered to be just nonsensical rumors and disinformation from the Jews. It was just like, it's not a thing. And it wasn't until people actually saw it with their own eyes, the horror of it, of bodies being piled upon body after body, that people really started to understand the depths and darkness. And there's a great book called Ordinary Men, I'm forgetting the author, and it's about the Polish who were like family men, who were like, had it was a father and a husband, and he would go home and see his kids, and then he would go to work the next day at the death camp, and he'd stand around and he'd watch these innocent Jews be beaten and tortured and harmed, and then at the end of the shift, he'd go home. And it's like, how do people turn a blind eye to that? It's this like slow creeping incrementalism. You don't go right into the fire, you warm up to it. And I think this is what's been happening, is this thing that we keep saying, or we keep hearing, for those of us who are at least who are aware of it, that you're a good person, therefore you should do X. and I'll be the judge if I'm a good person. I don't need anybody's approval. So I'm a free thinking individual, and I will be the judge of what I think is good. And I have a very strong moral compass for that. But I think some people, because they want to be good, because they want to be like good stewards of the society, they do things they wouldn't typically have done because they've been told it's the right thing to do. And they just blindly believe. And this is also the part of dogma that's the problem, and why their tagline's dogma unwelcome. I want people to think. I want people to have a difference of opinion. I want you to hear things that you don't agree with, because it might shake you out of your slumber, or it might help solidify the fact that maybe you're like, no, this person really is wrong and I'm right. But you never get there with safe spaces and censorship. And I think that's how we ended up with the Brandon Johnson. So I agree with you. Communism isn't going to work anywhere. It never will, because again, it's an exploitation. It allows the darkness of the human condition to come to light in the worst possible ways, and incentivizes it to. So I think we have a real problem here. And I do want to talk to you. I know we got to run it down. I want to talk to you specifically about I didn't want to play the clip because it's been played a gazillion times. I'm happy to pull it up if you want me to. But there is a clip circulating of you specifically with some very terse words for one Mayor Lightfoot, where you said, I believe, something to the effect
Play the clip.
Do you want me to play? Now you're calling me. I got to pull it up now. Hang on. I had it up and I was like, nah, he won't.
There you go.
All right, let me pull it up. But you had some terse words that went viral. And I think, did you make T-shirts? Did I see that the other day?
Yeah, there is a T-shirt. I think that it's important because clearly people, there are some people who want to wear the T-shirt. So
let me.
I think they can go to reporterwilliamjkelly.com and at least look at the T-shirt and decide for themselves.
I will put that in the video, and I will put that in the chat to make sure that people can see that. All right, here, I've got this up. Let me, I believe this will share with audio. And again, if not, then I'll fix it in post, guys. This is why I'm doing it. What is that? Is that the sweet sound of Chicago? Sirens. There it is. One of these days, we'll get past this nonsense. What an unbelievable thing to start this video. The crescendo of Chicago sirens. All right, I'm going to play this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Are going to have a hard time understanding how you ever even became mayor of the city of Chicago. I intend to write that book. I intend to make sure that at least there is some possible way for the city of Chicago to move forward. I hope that you realize what damage you have done to the city. I hope that after today's city council meeting, you will pack your suitcase and get the hell out of my city.
There you go. There you go.
You are a pandemic. You are a pandemic. Thank you.
Just to be clear, one of Mayor Lightfoot's city council allies heckled me at the end of my public comment, which is like a 3-minute opportunity to address the mayor of the city council. So I was just going to end my speech or my comment right there, or victim impact statement, as I like to refer to it. But this ally of Mayor Lightfoot turned to me and called me a derogatory name and said there was a pandemic. Like as if somehow that would excuse everything that Mayor Lightfoot, every one of her one of her sins, crimes, failings, whatever you want to call it, over the last few years, allegedly, and I turned to that individual and used her word back to her. Okay. I wasn't, calling Mayor Lightfoot a pandemic, but that's what happened
some terse words. Well, you can't just completely negate the safety of a city and think you're not going to have some stones thrown at you, and for good reason, I think. But you had your press credentials pulled, and I did want to talk about that. There's an open lawsuit against that too. I don't want to get into too many details or cause any problems.
We're in federal court on that as we speak. We and I'm I mean, the last few years have been rough on a lot of people, obviously. And I have had a media credential issued by the city of Chicago for the last 10 years. I started going to Mayor Lightfoot's press conferences and asking her obvious questions. And every time she completely went berserk. And she yelled at me that, I would say, hey, there were 80 shootings this weekend. What is your plan? She would lose her temper, yell at me, call me stupid, and then declare that shootings are down. And as you well know, Reed, what ended up happening was these videos started almost immediately from the word go to go viral. And I didn't even realize it at the time, to be honest with you, because these videos were being shared by so many different people and so many different platforms. And even I think the clip you just showed was the New York Post, but I mean, Forbes and obviously, Fox and Daily Caller and every other platform, platforms that I had never even heard of prior to this, I guess you could say, spontaneous eruption, and millions of people liked, commented, shared, and said that I was asking the questions that needed to be asked, saying that I was doing a good job as a reporter. And as we got closer, thank you.
Yeah, you 100% were, and not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but the reason you had your press credentials pulled was exactly because you were doing your job. This is the point of the corruption that we're living in right now, and it's systemic throughout the corporate press everywhere. They're trying to, and I don't know how this happened. I know Matt Taibbi talked about it a little bit in an interview where the journalists are typically like blue collar, working man type people that are now all coming out of Ivy League institutions and are very much like the offspring and this nepotism that I spoke about earlier, that they're like now there to save the system. They want to cozy up to the politician that are treated like rock stars rather than keep them in place. And or check their power at the bare minimum. And we have a representative form of democracy. We don't work for these fucking people. It's not how this goes. Right. Our tax dollars pay their salary because they are our employees. That's how this works. Right. That's the system that was set up for a reason. And if you don't have a system like that, then you get into and you spiral into things like communism where you can't get rid of people. And again, if you think communism is great, and my earlier statement about we have a people problem, there's a larger, probably 5-hour philosophical conversation there. But if you think communism is great, before you even want to check yourself or like really how easily it is for your own goodness to be like eradicated from your body.
For sure.
It can happen to anybody. It's not like I'm coming at this from a place like I'm better than you. Like I also struggle with these things, which is why I'm aware of it. I don't want to be a shitty person. I want to be a good person. And that's the thing. It's like the person, we only have the guy or the girl that's afraid of being a bad person. That's not the person you have to be weary of.
Exactly.
It's the person that doesn't give a shit about whether or not they
doesn't even realize that what they're saying or doing. Exactly.
Right. And so
and sadly, I think Mayor Lightfoot, and I held out hope for her. In fact, I was on with Tucker Carlson, and I said, on his show, if Mayor Lightfoot, first of all, that I don't hate Mayor Lightfoot, I don't hate anybody, and if she were to call me up and say, hey, Kelly, we got off on the wrong foot. Let's sit down. Let's do that interview you want to do. We'll talk, ask me questions. I'll answer your questions. I would have done that in a heartbeat. It probably would have it might have saved her career as mayor,
It's actually very
who
possible.
knows? That's the ironic thing about it, is that I never walked into a single one of her press conferences thinking I'm going to debate the mayor. I just thought I'm going to ask her questions. And she was the one who thought that she was going to somehow score points by debating the white reporter. And and the more she did it, the more it actually made her look small, like the old Wizard of Oz analogy. The more she did it, she made herself go from sounding, looking like this all powerful, untouchable politician that was going to easily win re-election, to looking like somebody who nobody even wanted to be associated with.
Yeah. 83% of Chicago didn't vote for her. 83%.
Exactly. I mean,
so folks, we're going to have a little edit there to explain my internet service, which was upgraded. This is an upgrade by a company that I won't say their names. I don't want to get sued, but rhymes with astound. They basically destroyed my internet connection several times now. So back up and running. I think we're good. I got all green on my side. We're not going to have another dropout. I'm so sorry I interrupted you with that very rude computer glitch. But you were just describing about, or just explaining to us, you were going after Mayor Lightfoot. You were not going after Mayor Lightfoot. You were just trying to ask questions, and she was very much on the prowl to attack you every time you showed up. And
before I even walked in the room, her press people, and it's all on camera. So, thankfully, that's the thing. You have to really, if you want to ask real questions or tell the truth or do anything apparently of any real merit in the city of Chicago now, which, by the way, I was born and raised in Chicago. I love Chicago with all my heart. I'm not a Chicago hater. Opposite. Okay. Mm-hmm. I do what I do because I love Chicago. But you better have it on camera, because these are some dirty, dirty, dirty people, let me tell you. And so, before I would even the second I set foot in City Hall, before I was even able to sit down in the press room, before I was, the mayor walked in the room, before I was able to ask a question, I was being harassed and intimidated on the way in and on the way out. And so I decided, I'm going to, you mentioned Germany earlier in the podcast. I remember as a kid in grammar school, high school, and college, reading stories and hearing, teachers talk about how, citizens in Germany, there were citizens who stood up and asked questions. Well, I thought, okay, I'll be that guy. I will go to this, to the city hall and ask questions to someone that I consider to be abusing her power, and I'm going to ask what's going on here. And sure enough, she thought that yelling at me was actually going to make me look bad. In fact, she even said it. She said, "Oh, he looks so stupid when he talks. He's so stupid." And you can look at the videos if you go to reporterwilliamjkelly.com. They're all there. They're all on the internet. They'll be, if you go to the internet and you search Lightfoot reporter, there are more videos there that will, I guess, last after we're dead, right? Yeah. There are more videos there than you could watch in one day, or that you'd care to watch in one day. That is for sure. And one thing is for sure, the more Lightfoot attacked me, the worse she looked. She looked smaller and smaller and smaller. Her aura of being all powerful was evaporating quick. So she had she had my press credential revoked. Okay, that's what I believe. Allegedly, right? Mm-hmm. And we are in federal court right now, trying to get my press credential back. And because the truth has nothing to hide, the entire lawsuit is at reporterwilliamjkelly.com. You can go there, click it, read it, and decide if you like it. If you support freedom of speech, which I never would have thought would be such a tough sell, in the United States of America. But you can certainly support our lawsuit, my legal defense fund. It's a 501c3. It's a tax deductible donation, and it's for. Don't think of it as a donation to William J. Kelly. Think of it as a donation to the First Amendment of the Constitution, because, as I'm sure you know, legal precedent, the way that works, if they succeed in saying, nope, we have, we can deny William J. Kelly his media credential, then Reed, they're gonna. You don't think they're gonna come after you? You don't think they're gonna come after any reporter, any blogger, any radio host, any platform that they don't like? They're gonna go, especially with 2024 coming up. You think Mayor Lightfoot was the only person that was evil or corrupt enough to think that she could just trample people's rights? No, we've got elected officials now in every city, town, village who are just itching to go after that one reporter who keeps asking questions. So I appreciate you having me on, and don't be the least bit surprised, Reed, if you have someone come after you or your podcast as a result of having me on. That's where we're at right now. So people really need to decide what side are you on? Are you on the, I guess are you on the side of tyrants, the people who will abuse your rights, who will trample your rights, or are you on the side of people who stand up and ask questions and tell the truth to the best of their ability? I will just say this, okay? I'm not going to try to convince anyone to do anything that they don't want to do, but I will say this: my study of history tells me that the people who try to censor, the people who try to abuse, they are the ones who typically are not looked favorably upon from history. Yeah. The people who stand up and ask questions, from Socrates on down, are typically the ones that the history books and the professors typically have kind words for. So it's really funny. I remember even before this Lightfoot situation, I had people, and I'm not just talking about corrupt, incompetent politicians. I mean, I had people other reporters who would call me a gadfly. They would say, William Kelly, he's a gadfly. And they clearly have never read a history book or a philosophy book, because, Reed, as I'm sure you know, the original gadfly was Socrates. He was the gadfly of Athens. That was what they used to call him, because a gadfly apparently is one of these insects that lands on you, and before you even realize that it's there, it starts to irritate your skin. It starts to irritate you. So they started to call Socrates a gadfly, and so my God, when they would call me a gadfly,
thank you.
I thought, my God, this is like the greatest compliment you could possibly give me. And then they'd be, see, that just proves how bad William Kelly is, how dumb he is. He thinks that being a gadfly is a good thing. My God, Reed.
This
can
is
you believe this?
I can actually. This is the, again, ultimately, it's my problem with identity politics. It's you get into the lowest common denominator when it comes to thought.
Right.
And so, for example, I saw this all over Twitter when after the runoff, or just before the runoff, after Mayor Lightfoot had lost, it was, don't vote for Paul Vallis. We don't need another old white guy. And it's like, he's Greek. The Mediterranean people are not white, but he's fair skinned, so he's now white. And this is it's like, you are being made stupid. You don't even see it. And this is another the reason I wanted to do this show. It's like murderers come with smiles. And ultimately this thing is like, we care so much about you, but it's like, you don't, you're infantilizing us. You're not the epistemological, debate of free speech. It's like this, you need the good with the bad, and you have to give people the ability to make up their own minds, and they have to flex that muscle so that they can spot what is good or what is bad. If you tell them what's good and what's bad, then you don't let them discover it on their own, then they'll never really understand it. And so you get people that are like, oh yeah, what a gadfly, not even realizing how deep it goes. It's understanding nuance, which is being completely destroyed in this binary world of, what do you look like? What's your immutable characteristics that you can't control? And then I'll lump you into that. And there was a video with the Trump indictment this past week, there was this woman who was yelling at a group of black guys who had Trump 2024 shirts on. And she's like, how dare you? How could you do this? You guys are sellouts. And it's like, what the fuck are you saying, man? Like, what are you saying? Like, are you saying seriously that because they look a certain way, they have a certain skin color, they therefore have to think a certain way? Therefore, they have to act a certain way? Is that not the fucking thing we've been fighting against? That you don't paint people with the broad brush? And that individuality is important. Like, what are we doing here? Like, that's so crazy that she was, I think you can look it up. It's like I think it's the new Karen dance or whatever. It's this unhinged woman who just hates the world around her. And she's just willing to spit venom on anything she can possibly do. And the concept that it's like, you're a sellout, that implies ownership.
That it's her place to say that, right? Yeah.
It's like, what are you saying? Like, I don't understand. So so the whole purpose, again, it's like the fact that you are asking the right questions, the fact that you got your press credentials pulled, I think speaks volume to what Lori Lightfoot ultimately has become, which is a fucking bully. And again, like the true power in this world uses their power and their influence to lift the world around it. It's because truly powerful people are not scared. They're not worried about the world hurting them. It's the tiny people in the world who are constantly scared and constantly frightened that they're going to be found out, that insist on demolishing and making others feel smaller because they themselves think that's the only way to make them feel bigger, is if I diminish the world around me. And it's a fucking fool's errand, because eventually at some point you run out of people to diminish, and you still have to look at yourself in the mirror, and you still have to see yourself for being the scumbag that you are and the loser that you are. And then you can distract yourself with cell phones and Netflix and everything under the sun. But until you reflect inward and realize that your flaws, you're never going to change. And it's always going to be someone else's problem. And especially for a person in public office that holds dominion over others, for her to approach this as a, fuck you, you're just the white guy in the room. You're the idiot. You're the gadfly. Like, you have a responsibility in a position of power to fucking be an example for other people. And the example that we have right now, you can see it in our youth. They're just doing the same thing. They're just shouting and shitting all over everything too. And like, what is that world that we live in then? That's horrible.
Yes. Well, God bless you, brother. Reed, my man, we got to do this. We got to do this. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do this in person.
I would love to. I love
this whole, the fact that we're able to do this is great. But you're in Chicago, right?
Yes, I am. I live right in River North. They don't kill me.
Let's put together some kind of an event. In fact, let's do it right now. Where do you want? So first of all, do you have a venue where we could host this event?
I can maybe find one. I do know of a place we could host an event and do this live.
Okay.
I do. I would have to check with the gentleman that owns the establishment.
Well, then here's what I would like to do. Let's let everyone know that if they go, that you and I will both be promoting an event in Chicago, where they can come out and participate in this conversation
and ask questions,
town hall style.
Yeah, and don't be a dick and shout at people and just be making noise. Like,
I promise I won't.
No, not you. I mean, here's this.
Just been like there, done that.
Yeah, I saw this thing earlier in the week. People were passing out whistles, and they're just like blowing whistles in the street, so you can't hear the interviewers. It's like, what are you doing? Don't be fucking silly. Again, it's like if you think it's so bad, listen to what the person has to say, think about it, internalize it, and then explain why you think it's bad.
Right.
And that's it. And again, I don't claim to have all the answers. I just am constantly in my own head trying to make sure I don't suck. And I'm trying to make sure the world we give the next generation is good. And I'm trying to hopefully be a better person in the process of doing that. And you can't do that in an echo chamber.
Well, then, as soon as you have a location, please hit me up with a couple of dates, a few possible dates.
Done.
We'll pick one, and then we will both promote it, and it will be great.
Awesome. Consider me there. Consider the, I don't know what we'll call it yet, but the event.
Oh, I know exactly what we're going to call it, but we're going to take it one step at a time.
All right.
We're going to give people the anticipation. They can't, you see what I mean?
Fair enough.
Got to reel them in.
William, thank you so much for doing this, man. You're an absolute treasure. Keep up the good fight. You're always welcome here. If you ever want to talk, I'm always going to make time. Keep at it. And let us know what's going on with the lawsuit. We'll put the description, we'll put the website in the description.
Please,
we'll also pop it up on screen as we're going through this. Again, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate you.
Me too. Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the internet.